looking at in section 9-3 is we're going to be going through and using our cash payments journal, but we're going to be going through and taking a look at what do we do at the end of a cash payments journal, and then going through and how we start a new one. It's not going to be much different than what we had before. So when we read our directions, it says the cash payments journal and petty cash report for Keller Lighting are given below. Your instructor will guide you through the following examples. The abbreviation for a check is C. We're going to rule page 5 of a cash payments journal using March 27th of the current year. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is we are to the bottom of a journal page, so we actually have to go through and total that. Okay, so we always do the total at the bottom of a page is always going to be the date of the last transaction. So you can see the last transaction on line 24 was the 27th, so I'm going to do 27. Now, what goes under account title? Carried forward or brought forward? Carried. And then I also put a check mark in my post reference just to indicate that I don't have to do that. And a check mark, again, is the letter V. Now, they didn't give us all the lines, so thankfully you don't have to go through and do the math. But what we do have to do is on top of page 6 of our cash payments journal, we have to get our totals brought forward. So what month are we doing? March. Okay, so we're going to go do March. What is our date? 27th is going to be the same date from the previous day. And instead of carried forward, we're going to write brought forward. Post reference, I'm going to put a check mark or the letter V. And then I put the numbers from the bottom of the one page on the top of the next. So how's that for totaling and carrying forward? Not too bad? I don't think it's too bad. Excuse me. Whew. Now, we just did instruction 1 and instruction number 2, but instruction number 3, this is your mind bender for the day. You ready? Kevin Tomlinson is the custodian of a $200 petty cash account. On March 31st, he had receipts for the following total payments: supplies office $45.23, supplies store $66.18, and miscellaneous for $49.25. The cash count shows that $40.59 is in the petty cash box. Prepare the petty cash report. That is a lot of numbers. Now, before you start plugging things in and trying to figure it out, listen to me so we understand what's going on. Eyes up here, not on the computer. Petty cash is the amount of cash that a business has on hand in order to make small payments. Okay, so each business will determine the amount that they're going to keep on hand for petty cash. Some say 150, some say 200. It should be an amount that will stay, last for a business for an entire month, but not a whole bunch of extra. Because if you have extra money laying around, that just leads to more problems with security and potential theft. Okay, so this business says that they have a $200 petty cash account. So what happens is throughout the month we work with the business and they say, all right, we need to get this shipped. Somebody go to the post office and pay for this for overnight shipping. Well, the employee is not going to use their personal money. They maybe will take $30 out of petty cash. So the employee takes the product, grabs some $30 out of petty cash. We go to the post office, pay for it. We get the receipt that shows what it is, and we get our change back from the 30. I take that receipt and change and I put it in my pocket. Okay? I go back to the business. I put the receipt in the petty cash box and I drag out the change and I put that in there. Is it possible that I missed a quarter and a quarter is still in my pocket? Right? So maybe now I'm short a quarter putting in there. Is it possible that the post office didn't give me the correct change? They gave me extra. Or maybe when I took that money out of my pocket, I had an extra dollar in there. And so when I pulled it out and set it down there, I had a dollar extra than what should be on there. So what we have to account for is being human in our petty cash, because it's not always going to come out nice and simple. We have to go through and we have to compare what our receipts say. We add up our receipts And then we have to know the physical amount of cash that is in our petty cash drawer. So we can see the physical amount of cash we have is $40.59. But what we need to do is we have to count up those receipts and see if they equal. And let me tell you, it's not going to on purpose, okay? And when it doesn't come out, we are going to use an account called cash, short, and over. Cash, short, and over is listed under the expense accounts. It typically would have a debit normal balance, but it could have a credit balance as well. And here's why. What if I had an extra $5 in my pocket? What would that do to the value of the business? Make it go up. And it would increase owner's equity, so it would have a credit balance. If we were short money, it would be in a debit, and then we would go through and we would actually have less money in the business. So its classification is under expenses, but it could either have a debit or credit depending on what happens that month when we do petty cash. The same thing happens just about every day when we have cashiers that balance their drawer. As a cashier, they go through and they ring up sales. Now, Cody, do you have to do anything like that? Prove your drawer or anything, or someone else does it? Okay. So he knows. Okay. But basically what happens is the cash register is going to go through and say, when Cody's logged in, he should have had total sales of $17,000, let's say. There'll be a lot of people that fill up diesel trucks, right? We'll just say 17. It's a nice round number. And if we go through, and if he physically counts up his drawer, and he's going to have to go through and account for what was credit card, what was cash, and what was check, but he should be able to add all of that up. And if he had only $15,000, what do you think would happen? Oh, do you think his boss might be a little concerned? And sometimes it's the employees that do the counting to verify, and sometimes it's managers that take and do it, and that's going to be varying for each business. But it's pretty much exactly the same thing as proving petty cash. We know how much we started with. They know how much you have when you started in your drawer. They know how much you should have had, and the difference between the two is going to be your cash, short, and over. Does that help you to understand what we're doing with that? Now, if he had in his drawer, instead of $17,000, he had $17,050, then the business is probably still going to talk to him and say, you're $50 over, or we made a mistake somewhere in giving change, or something happened. Businesses like it when things are right on, because otherwise you have to account for that loss or that gain, and that makes it a little bit harder to do. Plus, it's good customer service to make sure we get everything correct. Now, businesses do that to account for theft as well, because we don't want to worry about Cody comes in and somebody pays $100 in cash for gas, and they want to make sure that $100 didn't go into his pocket, it went into the drawer. And if they had concerns, that's why oftentimes cashiers, on the backside, they're going to have cameras. They're going to watch to see whether or not the employees are putting money in their pockets. Did you know that? Random business fact for the day. Not all businesses, but ones that are concerned about their cash controls will do that. So what we have to do is we're going to take this information in instruction number 3, and we're going to go down below here, and we're going to fill out our petty cash report. So our petty cash report is going to be completed as of March 31st, because that's what it says in the instructions. Now, who's in charge of this petty cash report? It tells you in the directions. It's the first word in the directions. Thank you, yes. So custodian is Kevin Tomlinson. So when we go through and look at the bottom, we have to go through and fill in our numbers. So fund total, right here under reconciliations, how much does in our petty cash? Thank you. Jordan, are you spacing out on me? Okay, come back. Abby's on fire today. So right here, we have different payments, and all we have to do is get our amounts from the directions. So how much did we spend on supplies office? Nice. $45.23. Supplies store. Nice. Miscellaneous. $49.25, right? because that was 4059 was the amount of cash. Now, add up those 3 digits. Use a calculator. Add them up. Do the total where it says less total payments. What do we get? Thanks, Alexis. 160.66. Would you agree? If I add up these 3 numbers, it equals 160.66? Yes, these 3 numbers, not the 200. So this 160.66, do you see this little like line and arrow thingy? We're going to take this number and put it right here as well. So we're just taking the same number and putting it over in the next spot. Now, look what it says right here to the left of total payments. It says fund total less total payments. So I'm going to take 200 and I'm going to subtract 160.66. And what does that give me? 39.34. So that should be how much cash we have on hand, mathematically. I started with $200. I have receipts that total 160.66. So on hand, in my cash drawer, I should have 39.34. Physically, how much cash do I have on hand? 40.59. So, looking here, 40.59 is physically what we have. We should have 39.34. Do I have a short or do I have an over? Short means you have less than what you should have. Over means you have more. So we have 40.59. Mathematically, we should have 39.34. So do we have more or less? More, and more is a over. Now please note right here, it says cash short, parentheses, over. If this is an over amount, it has to go in parentheses. What is the difference between 39.34 and 40.25 or 40.59? $1.25, would you agree? Now, when you see parentheses in math or in money, what do you think that means we do to it? Actually, it's going to be a minus. I totally see why you said multiply, though. But we're adding or subtracting here. No multiplication on our petty cash report. So, the total receipts that we had is 160.66. In the past, we just would have wrote a check for 160.66. But if I write a check for 160.66 right now, will my fund box have $200 in it? What would it have in it?
You would be over by $1.
It would be $201.25. And I don't want that. I always want to have $200 to start in there. So right here, we have 160.66. I have to take this parentheses, $1.25, and move this over to there. And again, the parentheses means that it is over. I have more money than what I should. And mathematically, what I need to do is I need to take 160.66 and subtract from it $1.25. So my check should be 159.41. I had to do all that math before I could journalize the transaction. Now, when I journalize this transaction, this is replenishing petty cash. Do I use the account title petty cash? No, we do not. Gentlemen, I need to do supplies office, debit, 45.23. Supplies store, debit, 66.18. Miscellaneous expense, 49.25. But I also need to account for that $1.25, and that's where I'm going to use that account title cash short and over? Is it going to go as a debit or as a credit? We have more money, so it's going to be a credit because it increases the value of the business. So you can't always associate cash short and over with always being a debit or always being a credit. The date of this is going to be the 31st. Supplies office. Check number, I forgot. 536. Oh, yes, thank you. I was having a hard time finding it. Thank you. We're going to do a debit of $45.23. How much am I writing my check out for? Yep, that goes on line 2 for cash. So we have to do supplies, store. Miscellaneous expense, $49.25. Cash short and over as a credit of $1.25. And what you need to be able to do is you need to be able to add up your debits and your credits, and they need to equal. Don't forget your cash, Devin. Line 2, cash credit, $159. Devin, you need your cash. Chris, your cash short and over is incorrect. It needs to be $1.25. There you go. Abby, your cash short and over needs to be a credit, not a debit. Okay. Now, the next thing that we have to do for this assignment is go through and total and prove. How many days are in March? 31. So I have to go through and put 31 here. And am I going to write total or totals? Totals, because there's more than one number. Put a V. Oh, no V in the checkbox there. But then I need to go through and add up my debit amount column, my credit, general credit. I could do accounts payable, debit without a calculator. Are done with your totals, you want to go down here and you want to prove your debits and credits. Make sure that your debits and credits equal. Because what you are going to find for these transactions is it's pretty easy to make a mistake, especially when you're doing your cash short and over. You get that in the wrong spot and you could be off. So take the time to prove that your debits and credits equal for page 6 of your cash payments journal, please. Yeah. General credit. Nope, that's the only spot that you're going to have the $1.25. How much is your check issued for? Your cash credit should be $159.41.